So most people don't really know what bipolar disorder is. I mean, recently I've had conversations with friends, and, I even had conversations with friends who have worked a little bit in the medical field, or, one of them was a nurse, and they still had a pretty limited understanding of what bipolar disorder is. So in this video today, I'm going to describe a little bit about the highs and the lows and what this is. And to answer a first question that people might have, is bipolar disorder real? I mean, is it something that you get over, or, you can snap out of? Bipolar disorder is a real disorder. There are occasional misdiagnoses, but for the most part, if someone is diagnosed with it and it's verified that they have the illness or the disorder, it's going to likely affect them for the rest of their lives. I've heard about the possibility of maybe in many years after taking medication, it might not be needed anymore, but I don't want to give any incorrect information out regarding that. So for the most part, I would say bipolar disorder does not change. It remains in your life as a part of your life. Once you're diagnosed, if it's an accurate diagnosis, you're with it for life. And that's one of the first things to understand with it. Bipolar disorder has a very real chemical cause, I would say. Also, bipolar disorder has a strong genetic component. Which means, if you're diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it's likely that someone in your family had mental illness, and someone likely had bipolar disorder itself, if you've been diagnosed accurately. I know I can say personally, my grandmother had bipolar disorder type 2, and then, alas, 2 generations later, I come around with bipolar disorder type 1. So, after understanding that it is a real illness, it is a real disorder, is something that people truly are affected with and generally will be affected with for the rest of their lives, now we can start to understand what it really is. So it used to be called manic depressive illness, which actually was a better name, I would say, than bipolar disorder is. Because bipolar disorder is characterized by manic episodes, which are your highs, and depressive episodes, which are your lows. The manic episodes see you having a lot of energy. They see you having, sometimes you're spending too much money. You don't care about the normal things that you would. You have greatly increased libido or sex drive. You really lose a lot of the normal filters that you would in your daily life before you were in a manic episode, such as, like we just said before, money and sex. It's like you generally want those things in your normal day-to-day life, but once you're in a manic episode, you start to take away the filters that would stop you from going to someone and just saying, hey, let's have sex, in a place where it's completely out of context. So that's one thing. A few more things that could be described with a manic episode. You generally do not get much sleep when you're in a manic episode. I would say maybe 3-4 hours a night on average at most. Sometimes you might not get any sleep. There was a period of time where I didn't get sleep for, it was about 3 days straight, and I went to the hospital to try to get sleeping medication, and I ended up getting admitted because I was in a manic episode. So the sleep is one thing. You also generally have less of an appetite. A kind of cookie cutter way to understand a manic episode is you can think of it as almost like someone is on methamphetamine. It's not the exact same by any means, but there are definitely some shared effects. You have way more energy. you do not sleep, you or at least not much, you don't eat that much, you're horny, you're impulsive, you have racing thoughts, and I'll be honest, a lot of the time I would say, especially with people who have bipolar disorder type 1, they are going to have symptoms that might rival or even in occasion be stronger than what someone would experience on a hard drug like methamphetamine or cocaine, something like that. Also, something that comes with mania, now that we're talking about kind of how it's similar to hard drugs and the effects that those have on your body, it also gives you a very strong sense of euphoria, or at least it did for me, and it does for many people. One last thing to mention about a manic episode is something that I haven't personally experienced, but I have heard often comes with it, is the anger. So anger can come along with a manic episode, and that's at least what I've heard. And it is understood, generally speaking, that many people do experience pretty strong bouts of anger while in an episode. And the next half of bipolar disorder is depression. Depression is a little bit easier to understand for people because depression is something that you can experience mainly coming from just circumstances in your life. Whether you are technically affected with a mental illness or not, if you have really bad circumstances happen in your life, maybe a few major bad things hit all at once, you could experience a limited form of depression, or maybe even a pretty high form of depression, at least in the short term. Understanding the difference between someone like that we might call neurotypical, who doesn't have a disorder, is they experience that maybe once or a few times in their life to a severe degree, but they don't really, it's not a common thing that happens all the time or happens over, years regularly. So with bipolar disorder, depression is very regular, and generally after a manic episode, after those highs, comes a very hard hit of depression, where you will have suicidal thoughts, life will feel hopeless, you will lose all of your energy, you will lose all of your interest in the normal things that you experience in life. So that's one way to understand depression. It does happen in a pretty similar form as other forms of depression, outside of bipolar disorder. Like I said, that even someone who doesn't have a mental illness might experience parts of that depression. But the thing with bipolar disorder that we need to remember is that it is a real thing that happens chemically in your brain. It's not just in your thoughts. It's not just something that, you can snap out of. It's real, and generally speaking, it needs medication to truly control the symptoms. So that's really a beginner's crash course to bipolar disorder. Just keep in mind, you have highs, extreme highs, and extreme lows that generally will be beyond what a normal person might experience in their entire life. Someone with bipolar disorder experiences those highs and lows much more often, and it generally is to a higher degree than normal people who don't have mental illnesses will possibly ever experience. So if you found the information helpful today, go ahead and subscribe and give me a thumbs up on this video. Definitely subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Let me know in the comments if you found anything particularly helpful, or if you have any questions regarding bipolar disorder. Dealing with the disorder myself in my own life for years now, I've come to know quite a bit about it, and I really have some inside information about it. So if you have questions, feel free to ask, and I will reply to them in the comments and possibly even make a video. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.